going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at MX Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 290, and we got a ton to talk about today. We just saw the NFL draft. Both of our teams made a ton of selections, very impactful. We'll get into that. But the meat and potatoes, April monthly awards for baseball.
Yeah, it's always fun early in the year. We're officially it's been at least a month since every team has played a game. I think the last day every team played their first game was on March 27th, so April 28th. So we are just past that stretch now, doing our 1 month awards, our playoff predictions. If the season ended today, so these are as of the morning of April 28th standings. Obviously, when this is uploaded, it might change a little bit because some teams have played their game already today. And then doing some draft stuff as well, too, because obviously we got to talk about the draft. But yeah, let's get into the opener because obviously our openers are going to pertain to some of the stuff that we saw on Thursday, Friday, and maybe even Saturday.
Yeah, I guess I'll start it off this time, opposite of the draft. Number two, and I guess I'll just come out and say on the other draft stuff, I didn't really talk that much about the Jets, so I'll say what I think about some of the top guys we drafted and then hand it over to you. I feel like most years I am pretty harsh on the Jets because they always do something that's like, what the hell, man? How does that make sense? But I really like this group. We'll start off number two, David Bailey. We weren't really sure if it was Reese or Bailey. I thought it was going to be Reese because he's more versatile, but then, we hear from the guys, GM and the coach afterwards, and they're like, we just need to draft someone who's not a bust. And unfortunately, there's no Myles Garrett, there's no Will Anderson, there's no Jeremiah Smith. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain about David Bailey because after I heard this guy talk, this guy is so smart, dude. And I see why they drafted him. He's like if Quinnen Williams went to Harvard instead of Alabama when you're talking to him, which is cool. But hey, at the end of the day, if this guy's screaming off the edge, then I'm fine with him if he's a B-graded guy. 16 was the shocker for us. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon. I just imagine they wouldn't be looking tight end because Mason Taylor had a pretty good rookie year. But then you see the rest of the draft and tight ends are flying off the board. So also another really intriguing one, Kenyon Sadiq. I imagine this guy will play a lot more receiver and him and Mason Taylor can coexist because that's kind of what's going on in the NFL right now. Just multiple tight ends. And then they trade up again, pick 30, Omar Cooper Jr., this guy's awesome. And when we talked about it last week, I said, I really love this guy, but I don't know if I'd take him at 16. Perfect. 30. I think he'll play well with Garrett Wilson too. And then one more I'll talk about just because he's such a polarizing guy. The very next pick 50, D'Angelo Pons. Just an awesome dude, right? I thought maybe Miami would take him in the first if anyone did, but I didn't end up having it. So pick 50 feels like pretty good value. Also, we're the Jets, right? Revis was an undersized man guy. We literally just had DJ Reed. I think this is a pretty good spot if he is going to play on the outside and learn from Aaron Glenn. So at the end of the day, I'll take this. I don't think this is an A+ draft or anything like that, but this is a bunch of starters, and I'm happy to see the future for the first time in a while.
Yeah, good draft for the Jets. I like what they did as well, too. There's definitely a couple of texts between you and me over the weekend of whatnot. I thought that wasn't really a story, but some of the headlines coming out about D'Angelo Pons and the Jets is like Aaron Glenn just drafted himself here, undersized corner, obviously to the Jets, of course. And that was a pretty interesting storyline. My opener will be more about the Raiders here as well, too. I didn't have them in any of the headline stuff that we'll talk about later because I didn't want to be super biased. Obviously, 1-1 is Fernando. We've known that for a long time. Very cool to see him finally be able to put on a Raider hat, be able for me to order my jersey, which I did on Thursday night. Him getting introduced at the Raiders facility was really cool. Acquainted himself with a ton of fans is really nice, and a bunch of Raider legends as well, too. So that was really cool to see. Obviously, super well-spoken guy. And just good to know that we actually have a quarterback now. Um, I was saying this on day two, rounds 2 and 3, where the Raiders took Traden Stukes, Kieron Crawford, and Trey Zune the third. I didn't know these guys like at all. I had not heard any of these names one time throughout the draft process. Maybe that's just me kind of being shallow sided and looking really just at 1-1 and then forgetting about the rest of the draft because we did have that first overall pick. But Stukes, safety from Arizona, really good year this past year in Arizona. He is 24 years old, but heard a lot of good things about him. Kieron Crawford played opposite of Kedrick Walk at Auburn this past year. Those two dudes seem to be really good friends. Pretty athletic edge. Had a pretty cool video of him jumping into a pool when he got drafted. That was kind of funny. Trey Zune played tackle at Texas A&M. Had a really good game against Ruben Bain in that playoff game that was 10-3. Probably the worst game to watch in the college football playoff this past year, but he had a really good game against Ruben Bain. He will be an interior offensive lineman. Heard a lot of stuff about his arms being short as well too, so maybe that's why he had a good game against Ruben Bain. I don't know, short on short, but he'll likely be an interior offensive lineman. The big picks came on day 3, I'd say, outside of Fernando, of course. Jermon McCoy, first pick on day 3, was a big one. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff with his knee, but if he hits, he hits, and this could be, a top 5 to 10 player in the draft. Obviously, there is that concern, but the upside is there where it's worth it with the 4th round pick. The next pick was our shocker, I'd say, taking Mike Washington Jr., RB from Arkansas. This was a fun one. 6'1", 223 running back. Obviously, there's Ashton Jeanty, who we took last year, and Ashton Jeanty's a starter. It's not like Mike Washington's coming over and taking over the starting job. But a little bit of yin and yang in the backfield. I think Mike Washington's going to be used a little bit more gadgety as well, too. Obviously, Clint Kubiak had a bunch of different things that he'd like to do with JSN, Rashid Shaheed, and I think this is a guy that allows him to do a little bit of that. Dalton Johnson in the 5th round, safety from Arizona. So we have both safeties from the Wildcats this past year. One of the best names in the draft, the next pick, Hezekiah Masses, cornerback from California. So our 4th DB taken in this draft definitely was a point of need going into the draft, and they addressed it well, which is awesome. 6th round pick, Malik Benson, wide receiver from Oregon, speedster, big time. He returned punts at Oregon. If you're returning punts at Oregon, you got to be a fast motherfucker, and he's exactly that. Good to see him drafted as well too, later round pick. And then Brandon Cleveland, 7th round DT. I don't know anything about him, but it was a good draft. I feel confident in a lot of guys that we picked. And again, kind of like what you're saying, for the first time in a little while, we have some excitement for the future, which is good to see for our franchises.
The analytics nerds love the Raiders draft. Like the foolish footballs of the world are like, this is the number 1 draft class I've ever seen.
I hope so. That would be very cool. And that'd be good omen for the following drafts with Clint Kubiak and John Spytek. Hopefully there for a long time. A secondary opener for both of us, I would say, would be the A's going 4-2 on their road trip from Seattle and Texas, winning both series there. Almost swept Seattle, a little up and down in that Texas series against the Rangers, but a very good road trip for the A's, and that's very good to see. The first place A's that we will talk about once we get to our playoff predictions for sure. Before we get there, player, pitcher, rookie of the week, as we always do. Starting off with the player of the week. Who do you have?
Shout out to Vargas and also Carlos Cortez, our guy. I don't think MLB necessarily got the pick wrong, but we had an extra game in there going back to Tuesday. And when you hit 5 jacks in a week, you can really flip a struggling lineup. So I'm going with Torque, 1.8 OPS this week, 2-1 K to walk. And just like that, the Tigers are back in first place, and we'll be talking about them too later.
Yeah, Torque is my player of the week. Carlos Cortez had his 4-hit game on Monday last week, so that's why he falls into the MLB's player of the week. He does it for both of us here. But Torque goes 8 for 19, 3 doubles, 5 homers. So all 8 of those hits were extra base hits, 6 RBIs. So maybe Tigers get some guys on, not named Kevin McGonigal, who we will also talk about a bit later. But Torque, former first overall pick, a really good week. Pitcher of the week, a ton of really good performances here.
Yeah, a lot of guys shoved. I thought some of the best games of the week were probably thrown by Ranger Suarez, Chris Sale, but I went with our guy Kyle Harrison. 6 shutout innings against the hot Pittsburgh lineup. 1 hit, 1 walk, 12 Ks, and that's his longest outing in like 2.5 years. He looked unstoppable.
A pitcher of the week. There's a lot of guys that had a single good performance. I think Ranger Suarez would have been the guy that I would have given it to if I did a guy that had a singular performance. But Max Fried pitched twice last week. He had two not complete games, but performances without allowing a run. 14 innings, 7 hits, 0 runs, 4 walks, 14 Ks. For the Yankees, I guess you could say ace. Cam Schlittler's pretty good as well, too. We'll talk probably both of them in a little bit. But Max Fried, pitcher of the week, a very dominant week. Why have a guy with 1 start when you can have a guy with 2 good starts?
Sure.
And that's my decision that I went with Max Fried. But also, shout out to Kyle Harrison as well, too. Former travel ball teammate. Rookie of the week.
First of all, I did not realize that Foster Griffin was eligible and also 30. So shout out to him. But I agree with you. It is that Red Sox Yankees game. But I will go with Peyton Tolley of the Red Sox in this one. His first start of the season, he was out dueling Cam Schlittler, the other guy eligible here. 6 innings, 11 Ks, 1 run before the bullpen blows it, and everything hits the fan for Boston. But I think it's safe to say he will be staying up on the big league team now.
Yeah, Peyton Tolley is my pick here as well, too. I don't know if anybody saw my tweet last week, but how the hell did Peyton Tolley why was he not on the roster to start the year? He was obviously a top 5 pitcher on this team. There was no service time manipulation that could happen. So I did go Peyton Tolley as well too. A great season debut: 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts against the scorching hot Yankees. Like you said, that was Tolley versus Schlittler. Tonight it's Tolley versus Trey Savage making his season debut. So some fun young pitchers in the AL East, which always seems to be a division that produces a ton of fun arms. Moving on, though, to our AL 1 or our AL and NL 1 month awards. We'll start off easy, I guess. We'll do all of AL. We'll go down from up, so we'll start off with the bust. I think this is the first time that we've done midseason bust and stuff like that. It's always been preseason stuff. So let's get it started with the AL bust. The only award on here that you don't want to win. So far, a month in.
We'll start this one off with Roman Anthony. Some guys have worse numbers, like Lawrence Butler, unfortunately, we have watched a ton of, just hasn't really figured it out yet. But also, so many people I know told me that this guy was going to win MVP this year, and that is just not happening. Roman Anthony off to a really slow start, and it's not just the on base. He also hasn't been hitting for power, which is really unfortunate for Boston.
My bust is going to be the guy I had winning the AL reliever of the year, Griffin Jacks. 6.35 ERA, which I'm not really looking a ton at ERA early in the season for relievers because a couple of bad outings can completely throw stuff over. But he's walking a ton of guys. His whiff and chase are way down. His hard hit is up. And he's just not pitching well. And that's a guy that I expected to, be in a lot of high leverage situations for the Rays. And he has been early in the year. And the Rays are still finding a way to win, as we'll see, as they'll be in our playoff predictions here in a little bit. But Griffin Jacks has not been good. He was used as even an opener a couple of days ago, and it was 2 1/3 innings. So it wasn't even really an opener. It was kind of more of a fringe starter weird thing that they do in Tampa. But Griffin Jacks has not been good. Hopefully he figures it out, but through a month he's been really disappointing to me. And my fantasy team, I kept him in the fantasy league, and he's just been terrible. So Griffin Jacks, my bust so far. What about the other side, though? The breakout, that's always a fun pick, and a month in, there's always going to be some crazy breakout stuff.
Yeah, I thought to try to find somebody who maybe wasn't the number one guy, because this guy that I chose is also up for a couple other awards, but I did end up picking Jose Soriano for my breakout. Might as well talk about him now while I have him. Hasn't lost, 0.24 ERA. We talked about him after the first month, I guess, now that we're, they started with a little bit little bit of time left in March, so we're a little over a month. But still, even after that time, he's been unstoppable. No one quite like him. I don't know how else to put it. You had the numbers for me. He was throwing more sinkers, right, this season, and no one hasn't figured it out yet.
Throwing less sinkers,
Less
I
sinkers.
think. But
Oh
yeah, he's
boy.
been really good. I'll get to Jose Soriano a little
Yeah.
bit. I think a month into the season, you can really go with a bunch of guys who just like you really came out of nowhere. I think Brian Rocchio is a good one. I think Daniel Schneeman's been a really good one. Austin Barton has had a really good start to the season as well too. But I did go Carlos Cortez because how could you not? He's been so good in his first 67 at-bats this year for the A's. A 204 WRC plus to start off the season. And going back to his debut last year, since he came up, I saw a stat about an hour ago, actually. So I don't know 100% if it's right, but I believe it's by WRC plus. Since he came up last year, since he made his debut, there's only been 3 hitters with a higher WRC plus than him: Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and his teammate Nick Kurtz. So Carlos Cortez, he's been amazing, and he's won some games for the A's to start off the year, and I think he deserves a breakout spot for me. The reliever of the year in a year that's been pretty shitty for every reliever not named Mason Miller. Who did you choose here?
Yeah, because of that, I went with old reliable here, Aroldis Chapman. Still got a 1 ERA. He's perfect on saves, 5 for 5. He's coming in situations he normally wouldn't, just because Boston has been in such distress over the past couple of weeks. He still got it, man.
My reliever was a guy who wasn't the closer to start off the year, has now taken over the closing role because of Jeff Hoffman's shitty performance. It's Louis Varland of the Toronto Blue Jays. In 14 games, he's had 15 innings pitched, 3 saves, 13.8 K per 9, a .6 ERA, so just 1 run allowed there. And he's striking out a lot of guys right now, and that means something. 40% of the hitters that he's facing, he's striking out. And there's actually only one guy in the AL with at least 10 innings pitched that's striking out more than him. It's technically Jeff Hoffman, but Jeff Hoffman's also given up a ton of homers and other stuff with it as well too. So Louis Varland's been great, and he's had none of the bad stuff to go with it. The manager of the year, who do you choose here?
Shout out to Kevin Cash. As the days go on throughout the season, it feels more and more likely that they're actually able to do something. But I did not go with him. This will be my A's mention right here, Mark Kotsay. I'm not sure if I'm convinced yet that he is the guy to lead them on a playoff run. But to be fair to Mark Kotsay, this A's team has been able to finish a ton of close games with one of the worst A's bullpens I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I wanted to choose Kevin Cash too. I was really close to doing it. The Rays have been really good to start off the year, but he's won the award before. So I had held off and did give it to Mark Kotsay and showed a little bit of my bias here. First place in the AL West is not something that a lot of people would have predicted just a month into the season. And the number overall 2 seed in the AL in general. And I know they're 15 and 13. It's not like they're going crazy, but played some of the toughest schedule in the league so far. I believe it's the 4th or 5th hardest schedule. And Mark Kotsay has navigated some pretty tough moments as a manager so far. All right. AL Rookie of the Year, always a fun one. Who'd you go with as number 3?
All right, number 3, maybe controversial, but it is such a great rookie class. My third guy is Kevin McGonigal of the Tigers. Leads rookies in hits, extremely well-rounded player, takes over immediately for the first place Tigers. There's just a couple of guys that are really, really intriguing and maybe a little more surprising than Kevin McGonigal.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, honorable mentions that should be named here as well, too. I think Noah Schultz will be a guy that probably pops himself into this conversation as he gets some more starts under his belt. I want Parker Messick, number 3, to start it off, striking out 28% of hitters that he's faced so far. A 1.73 ERA, obviously had a really good start last week. It was bringing a no-hitter into the 8th inning, almost the first no-hitter that we've seen since 2024. Parker Messick's been big for the Guardians, still rookie eligible after a good start to his career last year as well, too. He's just getting the job done. So Parker Messick, number 3 for me. Number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is going to be Parker Messick. Basically, every time I turn on a Cleveland game when he's pitching, he's been elite. He hasn't had a bad moment yet. I think he's lost one game, but he's been awesome. Also on the fantasy team, so shout out to him. And I don't know. I kind of like, maybe it's a traditional thing, but one hitter, one pitcher at the top. Maybe that's why. Sorry, McGonigal.
I went a little bit of a shocking route here. Number two, I did put Munetaka Murakami. He's practically just Kyle Schwarber. Nick Kurtz type of ability where it's high whiff, high K, but he walks like crazy. And when he touches the ball, it goes very far, very fast. Leads the MLB in homers right now with 12. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card to start off the season. And if he did, definitely didn't want to have him as number two for the AL Rookie of the Year. I just have him as two because I think there's one that's a little bit better right now. So I'm going to talk a number two for me. I assume he's going to be this number one for you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's number one at the top for me. 12 homers, like you were saying. But basically, it's because I think this is the type of signing we're going to look back on and be like, man, I can't believe we were worried. Like, this is what the MLB is right now. And he is just becoming that Schwarber guy immediately because he had a couple of years in the pros already, just not in these pros. And he's been awesome.
Number one, maybe I gave him a little bit more of a boost because he is 21 years old. Kevin McGonigal, he's been so good. And I mentioned this when he came up, or before he came up, when we were doing our preseason stuff and even like our spring training overreactions. I was talking about this guy of how professional of a hitter he is and how he works the other way and is very like an old school. If you're from the 80s, you're going to like watching this guy play. He is a superstar and he can hit like crazy. It's not just professional at bats. He hits the ball hard to go with it. He's hitting it at the right angles as well too. He's not hitting the ball on the ground a ton. It's very professional while also being very modern as a hitter as well too. That's pretty rare in today's age. 98th percentile whiff from a 21-year-old just is not something that you see. It can't really get much better. And that's really cool to see. He's been terrible on defense, so I will say that. I think he is not a shortstop long term. I said that to start off the year as well too. I think he's probably a second baseman long term, maybe even third base, who knows, but he can rake. He has a higher WRC plus than Munetaka still, with Munetaka leading the MLB in home runs, 13% walk, K percent lower than that. Just overall phenomenal from McGonigal. AL Cy Young now, ton of fun arms. Who'd you choose number three?
Number three, I went with Tarek Skubal. I felt like he was a guy I couldn't lead off, even if maybe he isn't in the top three in strikeouts so far this season. But it's similar to a guy that we will talk about later in the National League. It's okay if you have one bad start and you don't have a sub-1 ERA anymore if you're just constantly an absolute menace on the mound. And that's what Tarek Skubal is. I won't talk too much about him.
Kim Schlittler is going to be my number three. I did leave Tariq Skubal off to start off the season, and I know he'll be back on this list, but I think there's three better pitchers right now, and Kim Schlittler is definitely one of them. Not giving up a ton of runs, a 3% walk rate, a 30% K. He's just getting through hitters like it's nothing right now. And has been one of the best pitchers since he came up last year in August, September. I don't know exactly when, but he's been really good. And he's worthy of being on the list for Cy Young. Number two, I got his teammate, Max Fried. He's just a guy this season that I trust to pitch in big games. I feel like he's always winning those big games. He's 4-1, 2 ERA. He's not walking a lot of guys. He's striking guys out too, which is basically like prime Max Fried on Atlanta. I think he's back, and New York's got to be ecstatic to have him. Yeah, I think he's better than back. I think this is the best version of Max Fried that we've seen so far. He's number two for me as well. 47 innings pitched is also number one in the MLB, and that's something I've always valued when it comes to my rankings for starting pitching. He does have one more start than everybody else, but unless George Kirby throws 8 innings in this next start, there is nobody catching them in their 7th start as well too. So Max Fried's been throwing a ton of innings. He's been getting late in games. It's not some crazy strikeout rate or anything like that, but he's just pushing through hitters. And when your team had a 4-man rotation to start off the year, it's kind of reasonable to do that. He stepped up big time for the Yankees bullpen that was kind of unsure going into the season as well too. And then number one, not really a ton of debate right now.
Nope. Jose Soriano, once again, one earned run in 37 innings. Just unbelievable. I had to mention him for all these awards because, even if he was a breakout candidate, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, Jose Soriano, 0.24 ERA. That's obviously ridiculously unsustainable. 100% left on base percent is also unsustainable, but he's been so good. He creates a ton of easy outs that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our buy or sell. I think we both bought on him. He's really good, and he keeps the ball on the ground, and he's getting Ks to go with it, and he's not walking a ton of people either. So Jose Soriano has been really good. It's probably not going to be the Cy Young at the end of the year, but like I said in the past, he's an all-star level pitcher, and I think that probably sticks all the way throughout the season. AL MVP, number 3,
Yeah.
Who'd you choose?
Shout out to a couple of other hot starts, Ben Rice, Shea Bangaliers. But number 3, I'll continue it. Again, like I was saying, Jose Soriano, there's nothing like it. I'd like to include at least one pitcher in the top 6 here, and this was my mention for April.
Yeah, Jose Soriano is my number 3 as well too. I debated putting Max Fried as number 3 instead of Soriano, even though I had Soriano higher on the Cy Young because of just getting through the innings is more valuable maybe in my eyes. But Soriano's been so good. There's no way I can't put him on this list. Number 2.
Number 2 in the AL is Aaron Judge. He's definitely back, but he had a 2-week stretch where he couldn't hit a beach ball. So that's pretty much the only thing holding him back. Other than that, I think he should probably be up for the Real Award. I just think if the season ended today, there's a guy kind of with the same exact numbers, except he gets on base 100 times more.
Number 2 is Ben Rice for me. Had a ridiculous start to the season: 10 homers, 23 RBIs, 18% walk, 215 WRC plus, a 447 OBP. He's just raking, man. And it's been fun to see. I was super high on him going into the season. A lot of people had him as a breakout. I don't really think he could have been a breakout. I think he was good enough to the point that he is breaking out. But he's technically breaking out again, I think, as well, too. From stardom to superstardom is what we're seeing right now with him. And he's just been ridiculously good for a Yankees team that has a lot of ridiculously good players. So no Aaron Judge on this list for me. Because number 1 is pretty obvious through the first month of the season.
Yeah, really wish it could have been Jeff Springs here, but unfortunately it's not. It's Yordan Alvarez. Everything that Aaron Judge has done great this year, except this guy has a 4.69 on-base percentage. He's always on base. If you pitch to him, he's going to hit a tank. And other than that, guys are just walking him because they're afraid. And this is probably the second most feared player in baseball right now.
Yeah, Yordan. I believe it's only 2 players that have 85th or higher percentile. I think it's Barrel and K. It's Yordan Alvarez and Carlos Cortez, which is kind of funny.
He's the other player I was referring to.
But yeah, Yordan's been ridiculously good. It doesn't make sense for somebody that swings so hard and has so much power to just not miss the ball when they swing. And that's what he's doing. It's like J-Ram, but 6'4", 240. It's really like stuff you just don't see in baseball. It is Barry Bonds-esque in this first month of the season. I mean, the 1.2 OPS is, I guess, not technically even Bonds level because Bonds had the 1.4 in a season or something like that. But Yordan's nuts, man. And he is healthy, and he is the best hitter in baseball through the first month for sure. To the NL, we'll start off with the bust. Get it going easy. The bust in the National League is who?
Yeah, this is very similar to the Roman Anthony pick. I didn't do any deep dive here, but I will say I didn't even realize he was the worst player according to WAR Rafael Devers. He's having a very hard time getting on base consistently, and that's kind of the whole point of him going to San Francisco. Bottom 10 in OPS in the National League, only 2 homers. What is this going to look like when it actually gets cold there?
Yeah, Rafi. He's been really, really, really bad to start off the year. He whiffs a ton, strikes out a ton, has not walked a ton as well too. Usually things that I mean, he's always kind of striking out, but he usually walks a ton to go with it, and that's just not how it's going this year. Um, he's been bad, man. I mean, there's not much to go with that. He only has 2 homers. Obviously, a very one-dimensional kind of power hitter type of guy. There is no defense or speed that you're going to get from him as well too. So Rafi's been bad, and I think it's very worthy for him to be the bust in the NL so far. What about the breakout?
Keeping the chalk here with my breakout picks, I just wanted to talk about Jordan Walker again. 8 homers, and he was leading baseball for a little bit. Not on that Barry Bonds pace anymore, like some of the other guys we've talked about, but it was still a really nice surprise for the first month to know that he's back and dangerous.
A lot of good choices here. I think Liam Hicks is a fun one. Joey Weimer's a fun one. Jordan Walker's a fun one. Um, Otto Lopez, I think you could technically put in here as well too, even though he was already a good player. I did go Ildemar Vargas though, sixth most valuable player in the National League as far as hitters go so far. 203 WRC plus, hit streak over 20 games now at this point is really cool, and is showing more pop than he's ever seen in his life. So I think he's in his late 30s or mid 30s already at this point. He is 34 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not looking at this guy having some crazy long-term career, but we've seen it happen where it's a couple of good year stretches from mid-30s players, and I think Ildemar Vargas could be the next one. And I know the Diamondbacks fans would like that. Reliever of the year, easiest choice that we will have on this entire show.
Mason Miller, I'm so sorry I picked Edwin Diaz, but there's the baseball gods already letting me know that I was wrong with Edwin Diaz elbow surgery. That's kind of it. I thought it was a 2-man race. Now it's just Mason Miller. Fortunately, he loses the streak, but unbelievable. There's no one doing what he's doing. He's one of the most feared players in the league. And by the way, I saw the video of the foul ball. When I saw the other angle, I was like, oh yeah, no, that was 2 steps foul. What are we doing?
Yeah, that was a bad call. I kind of was okay with him allowing the second run that night because I made it feel like, okay, he was going to lose it anyway tonight. It's not like, that was 1 run allowed, and then he goes on this month streak of not allowing a run again. But he definitely is the reliever of the year still. Still has a negative FIP. You're not supposed to have a negative FIP. That's not how the stat was designed. Striking out literally everybody that he faces. His 10 saves are, I'm not even going to look, but I assume it's tops in the league right now. He's just been so good. He throws harder than everybody else as well, too, so that helps. But yeah, Mason Miller, reliever of the year. Manager of the year is who?
Yeah, I'm going Terry Francona, Cincinnati. Shout out to Pittsburgh. But from the first pitch this season, I was sold on Cincinnati. I thought they were legit. 1 month later, they're 18-10. They've been awesome.
I'm going to go in a bit of a weird direction for my manager of the year. I want Walt Weiss from Atlanta. First year manager, technically, obviously inherited a pretty good squad, but the Braves the past few years have been pretty disappointing. And I think if we went into the season like we did this year and knew 2 out of the 3 teams from the NL East that we expected to be good were going to be dog shit, I think the Braves probably would have been number 1 on that list. Yeah, they're the team that's probably the best, or I think has the best record in the MLB right now. Walt Weiss has done some numbers over there. He's dealt with a ton of injuries as well too, and he's navigated it well. So Walt Weiss, former A, manager of the year for me. NL rookie of the year now, number 3 is who?
Start off with a guy I know you like, Moises Ballesteros, Chicago.
Baller.
Yeah, he's been everything that Baltimore has wanted to get out of Samuel Basallo, and he's just been a more all-around DH, I guess, if it's possible, but I guess that's kind of what Yordan has created. or going back even further, Edgar Martinez. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Moises Ballesteros, big reason why Chicago just won 10 in a row. Great hitter.
I was close to putting Mo Baller on there. I went JJ Weatherholt. He's been really good to start off the season. Good defensively as well, too. 6 homers. Big homer last night to tie the game in Pittsburgh. Very polished hitter as well, too, to start off his career. Something that we don't see a ton from young hitters, and he's been super good to start off the year. Showing some pop, more pop than what I expected. So JJ Weatherholt, the next star for the St. Louis Cardinals. Number two.
Number two, I'm going with another guy that I really like and has just been getting screwed this season. Nolan McLean, New York Mets. Great ERA, 45 Ks to 10 walks as a rookie. Unbelievable stuff from this guy. Just filthy, and he's going to have a great career.
Number two is going to be Sal Stewart for me. Phenomenal to start off the year. 9 homers, 7 stolen bases. I did not expect him to have 7 stolen bases in the entire season. 164 WRC plus is great. Walking a ton, not striking out a ton for a guy that has 9 homers as well, too. Slug over 600. He's been raking for the Cincinnati Reds. A big part of why the Reds are the number one team in the NL Central right now. And then number one is who?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sal Stewart at the top here. Been really fun watching him. He's been a guy for me. I'm like, oh, is this guy J-Ram now? Like you were saying earlier. And yeah, big reason why Cincinnati's been playing well without Geno Suarez. This guy stepped right in and has been way better than him.
Noel McLean, number one for me. He was my preseason pick for Rookie of the Year, so maybe it was just, might as well stick with the guy if he's close. I could definitely understand Sal Stewart or JJ Weatherholt honestly being number one. Striking out a ton of people, not giving up runs. His expected ERA is lower than his actual ERA as well, too, which means that he's not like getting lucky in these outcomes as well, too. He's a tough at bat. Obviously everybody's a tough at bat in the MLB, but you just watch him pitch and the angles that he creates are just like, okay, like that would not be a fun time in the batter's box, and there's no easy time against him. So Noel McLean's been great. He's been one of the very few bright spots for the Mets so far this season. And he's going to be the Rookie of the Year for me, I think, when it's all said and done. And he is through the first month of the season.
Right.
Moving on to National League Cy Young. Getting started with number three. Who do you have here?
Mason Miller, maybe in the conversation for the top spot if he was still perfect. Not that it was his fault, right? There was a bunt and an infield hit and an error and a wild pitch the other night, but he definitely needs to be talked about here because by far the most dominant reliever in baseball.
I went Jacob Mizorowski, number three. Leads the MLB in strikeouts so far. Hasn't even gone through some crazy amount of innings, but he's had that dominant stretch of innings that I do think needs to be talked about here. There's a ton of guys that I think deserve to be on this list as well, too, that have been shockingly really good. Braxton Ashcraft, Shohei Managa, even Landon Raup has been really good as well, too. But Mizorowski's been better than all of them. So number three for me. Number two, I'm going Chris Sale. He still got it, man. Him too. 5-1, 38 Ks, 2.3 ERA. Another guy who I feel like is always on the mound when it's a big game, maybe the one you need to win the series. And as long as he's healthy, he's been the guy everywhere he goes. So I still love watching Chris Sale, and I have him over some of the younger guys still. My number two is going to be Mason Miller. He's not number one anymore after last night. And I think it's very tough as a reliever. Does he deserve to be knocked down from 1 to 2 because of a singular bad inning that wasn't really even a bad inning? Probably not, but I think he will. So he is number two for me. I hope he gets back up to that number one because I think it'd be a very cool story to see him win Cy Young. But he is number two because there's number one. And number one is who?
I got Paul Skeens. Outside of the opening day disaster, he's been basically perfect. This was a tough one because it's another conversation of, are we projecting this or does he really deserve this? I still felt like I could pick Paul Skeens for the April Cy Young for the National League.
This guy that I picked only has 4 starts, but he makes his 5th start tonight, and I went Shohei Ohtani as my NL Cy Young. A .38 ERA to start off the season is better than Mason Miller's, technically speaking. He's not striking out the same amount of rate of guys. I know he probably won't stick to a .38 ERA, but anything's possible with Shohei right now. He's been super good on the mound, as expected. Obviously, the batting number's been down a little bit, but still good there as well too. If he was a guy who's going to make 30 starts of the season, I think the NL Cy Young would definitely be in play. I do think it's going to be tough for him to keep it up because he's probably not going to pitch more than like 150 innings in a season. And there's going to be guys with 200 on this list. Maybe his closest competition is a guy with 60 innings, though, so maybe that helps his case here. I don't know. But Shohei is my guy through the first month of the season. NL MVP, the big dog here. Number 3 is who?
Let's start off with James Wood of Washington, finally starting to figure it out for real. He's also keeping the power, 10 homers this year, while also becoming a legit leadoff hitter. On-base percentage over 400. That was the only issue with James Wood, so that's why I included him here.
I went EDLC here, Ellie De La Cruz as my number 3 guy. There's a ton of fun choices here at the top. And I have another one at number 2, but Ellie De La Cruz has been great for the Reds so far. Him and Sal Stewart are carrying that offense big time. 9 homers, 6 stolen bases, good defensive shortstop as well too. Becoming the player that we expected to see him become, and that's really cool. Strikeout rate's high, but it will never not be high with him. And he's navigated it well. Number 2.
The fun part about 2 and 3 with the National League is that it doesn't really matter. You could pick whoever you want. So I went with a guy I really like, even though he's been hurt, Corbin Carroll. An extra base hit machine this season, 6 doubles, 4 triples, 3 homers, despite missing time with a bunch of different things. He broke his hand too. I always forget about that before the season started. But when he's on the field, he's a demon.
My number 2 is somebody who's very Bobby Witt-like, but has not gotten that recognition to start off the year from a lot of national media outlets. 4 homers, 7 stolen bases, 24 RBIs, 137 WRC plus, one of the best defenders in all of baseball. Strikeout only around 10%, walk around the same. Nico Horner of the Chicago Cubs has been phenomenal to start off the season, and a big part of why the Cubs have been so good to start off the year. If Bobby Witt Jr. was having the season that Nico's had to start off the year, everybody would be like, oh, Bobby's MVP. Bobby's going to do it this year. But nobody's saying anything because Nico Horner is just doing this quietly while still being on one of the best teams in all of baseball. I think he might be the guy that we look at 4 months from now. I'm like, damn, I had Nico Horner as my number 2 in NL MVP, but he deserves it so far. And so that's why he gets the number 2 for me. Number 1.
Shohei Ohtani. Slow start on offense with only 6 homers, but he's still top 20 in literally everything in baseball that you can. 20 walks and 30 homers, have his average back at a respectable number. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you already mentioned it, but a .38 ERA. Shohei has about half the innings of the other starters. That's why I didn't include him. I think, the way you put it, he has more innings than Mason Miller. That's very true. But MLB didn't have him as qualified, so that's why I didn't. I'm not going to knock him for being in a 6-man rotation. That's why he's still the MVP.
Yeah, Shohei's MVP. I find it very hard for somebody to win the NL MVP in a time that Shohei's healthy and playing consistently. Because if he's a league average hitter and he's an all-star level pitcher, then he probably gets close to it. But he's not ever going to be a league average hitter. He's always going to be more than that. And even on the downside, he's been, in my eyes, the best pitcher in the National League. In years that he hasn't pitched, he's won the NL MVP because he stole 50 bases. The 50 bases days are probably gone at this point. I think we're probably looking at 25 to 30 most per year now. But he's so good. And I know we've talked about him pretty much ad nauseum over the last, 8 years now at this point. Like, it's his era of baseball, man. And I think when we look back at this from 10, 15 years from now, or um, I think it's tough for us to put in perspective how good Barry Bonds was, or to understand how good Barry Bonds was, because we were so young and we didn't really know what was going on. We just saw, oh, that guy hits a ton of homers. He's really good. But Shohei is that guy where he's untouchable when it comes to this award. And there's never really been anybody like that in the history of the sport. He's a unicorn. The glaze is necessary for this guy. It's something else, man. So happy to say I've been able to watch him pitch in person, been able to watch him
Yeah.
hit in person, because he's a guy that you tell your grandkids about, and there's not a lot of people like that. Moving on, off the Shohei Glaze, and into the AL playoffs, doing things how they actually are as of today, going into today. I'll split out the seeds here real quick just so that we're on the same track. 1 seed Yankees, 2 seeds who? Two
Oh,
seeds the A's. 3 seed is the Detroit Tigers. 4 seed is the Tampa Bay Rays, another shocker. 5 seed is the Cleveland Guardians. And 6 seed is the Texas Rangers. So this means no Seattle, no Houston, obviously, to start off the year, no Boston, no Baltimore. Boston's had their own issues that we're actually don't really have much time to even get into this episode. But I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. Same thing with the Phillies on the other side. Oh my gosh. But AL playoffs, 6 versus 3, Texas versus Detroit. In Detroit, how do you have it?
Texas has a very good pitching staff. They've exceeded their expectations. They have big game players, but it's not at the same level as Detroit right now. I have Detroit sweeping them in two because you have to face Skubal and Valdez, and I don't think Texas's lineup is ready for that right now.
The Texas Rangers have faced lefties the least amount out of any team in the big leagues. And if you are facing the Tigers in a 3-game series, you are going to get Tariq Skubal and Framber Valdez, who are both lefties. So I don't know if they just don't match up well. Obviously, this is more of a, hey, this has happened because it's, an opportunity, but they're not prepared for it, I guess. Regardless, I think Skubal and Valdez go up with their 1 and 2 just as good as anybody. I think the offense is better on Detroit's side. And I think the bullpen's better on Detroit's side as well, too. And this is in Detroit, not Texas, too. So that helps Detroit in 2. Cleveland versus Tampa Bay. This series is technically going on right now, although it was flip-flops because it's going on in Cleveland. This would happen in Tampa Bay. St. Pete, the Trop, back in the playoff field. How do you have it?
Man, this is a good one for the baseball maniacs. I feel like most people would look at this and go, what? But it just intrigues me even more looking at it because I have Tampa Bay putting everything they got into this first game, winning at home, and then probably falling apart because Cleveland's been there before. Cleveland's not having the best season on offense, but they have been here before. Way more recently than Tampa Bay. I have them winning the last two and moving on because they were able to go 500 and Seattle wasn't.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is a weird squad. It's Rass and McClanahan at the top, and after that, is it Steven Matz? Is it Jesse Schultens? Like, who's the guy that they go here? I don't know. But they have a ton of arms that I think they'd be able to do it against Cleveland. So I have Tampa Bay in 3 in this one. I think it'd be a very fun baseball series. A lot of chess moves. I mean, we've talked about this, I believe, the last 2 years with Detroit and Cleveland. When those two matchups happen, this is going to be a baseball purist fun series because there's so much chess match going on. And these are the two teams that I think probably displayed the most in baseball. So Tampa Bay in 3. On to the ALDS. First time back, and we get the long-torn foe. Detroit versus the A's. This one is happening in West Sac and Detroit, of course. School will pitch game 1. I don't know. I don't know how that matches up, but regardless, this would be a successful season for the A's if they got here. How do you have this playing out?
100%, man. Just showing up would be great because that means they're ahead of schedule, and I would be very happy with that. Detroit, on the other hand, is a very nasty matchup for us. The thing is, though, we beat down on Terry Skubal before. I don't think our guys are afraid, despite being a very young lineup. They just can't compete with the pitching staff. I actually had this one going to five, back forth, every other game with them, and then Detroit winning the last game, game five.
I think it's actually an interesting draw for the A's when it comes to facing the Detroit lineup. I know it's gotten better because Kevin McGonigal's there, but it still isn't like a crazy group where you're like, oh shit, like how the hell are we going to get these guys out? It's not really like that with Detroit, and I think the A's lineup, can go toe to toe with any pitching staff. We saw them. Tarek Skubal had debatably his worst start of the season last year in West Sacramento, and when they played him in Detroit as well too, I think we scored 3 runs against them. So there's that. Framber Valdez is not a good matchup for us, as we've seen about a bajillion times in the last 15 years. It feels like, but if we get Jack Flaherty or Casey Mize, like there's wins in there, and the A's, I believe, will do it. I think they have the ability to do it. So I did pick the A's in 5, which would be ridiculous if that were to happen. Obviously, this is all hypothetical. If the season ended today, it doesn't. There's a ton of games to play. But I do think the A's have a good matchup in Detroit when it comes to facing a weaker lineup than most teams in the playoffs and having the ability to have history against some good pitchers in the past. On the other side, very fun series. David versus Goliath for me. Kind of the same thing for you with Cleveland. I have Tampa Bay versus the Yankees.
Yeah, so with me, with Cleveland, I just don't think this is a very good matchup for the Guardians at all. I picked the Yankees to sweep them. You would hope it would be, because when they played, it was very entertaining 2 seasons ago in the ALCS. But New York, and like you said, a lot of things can change by the time we get there. But as of right now, the Yankees look extremely comfortable with their rotation going on short rest. And that's just perfect for a series like this, where Cleveland's going to be eating through that bullpen.
The Yankees always struggle against Tampa Bay. That's like for whatever reason, it's their Achilles heel. They just can't handle that team. I think it'd be a very, very fun, rough series for the Yankees in this one, where you're really playing for your dignity because you should beat Tampa Bay. I think they do, and I think they do it in 5 games. I think it takes a while to get there, but there's a lot of points in this series where you're like, oh, like Tampa Bay could actually beat the Yankees here and give us an A's versus Tampa Bay ALCS. But A's versus Yankees for me in the ALCS. Yankees versus Detroit for you in the ALCS. How do you have that going? Who's going to the World Series?
I think this would be a fantastic matchup, right? Both teams are kind of carried by the starting pitching, at least, through the first month. And I do have this series playing out very even, all the home teams winning 2-2 as we get to the last 2 games. And then the Yankees win the last 2 because they got more firepower. We'll see who these teams are picking up at the break, because they're both got to be buyers, you would imagine. But something about the Yankees playing that last game at home, I don't know if Detroit is ready. I am not sure if I see like a Yankees Arizona 2001 situation. Detroit just might be shit out of luck. They don't have as much money,
Yeah, if A's versus Yankees happened in ALCS, I mean, I would be the happiest person on the planet. Like, that would be so cool to have happen. Obviously, it would mean the A's would be way ahead of schedule when it comes to their rebuild. Maybe turns into more free agents in the next following years once they get to Vegas. Probably not this next year with the lockout in Sacramento and whatnot. But regardless, it'd be a very good thing for this team to have happen. But the Yankees are the exact opposite of the Detroit Tigers, except for they're really not, because they have 2 ace pitchers as well too. They just have a stellar lineup to go with it. And I know the A's took a series from the Yankees in the Bronx a couple weeks ago. I just don't feel like that would happen consistently. And I think if you're playing in West Sac with Mark Leiter on the mound, fuck me, I'd be so nervous. Like that'd be terrible. I have the A's getting a game in this series. But I don't think it's much more than that. And I think that's reasonable to say. So Yankees in 5, they move on to the World Series here. On the NL side, the seeding goes Atlanta 1, Dodgers 2, Cincinnati 3, San Diego 4, Cubs 5, and Arizona 6. We'll start off 6 versus 3, Arizona versus Cincinnati.
Yeah, Arizona's been fun to watch again, like they usually are. But honestly, they're playing way above what I expect them to finish this season. I have Cincinnati sweeping them. I love their pitching staff, dude. And Arizona's not so much this season. No Corbin, you know.
Yeah, Soroka's been really good to start off the year. I'll say that. But outside of that, I just don't know how this team gets outs. Cincinnati doesn't have some crazy lineup. I'll say that. But I still think they win in 2. So Cincinnati Reds in 2 games in Cincinnati. 5 versus 4, another series that's actually going on right now in San Diego as well too, which is cool. So I guess this can be our playoff the next couple of nights. Chicago versus San Diego, 5 versus 4 in San Diego. How do you have that playing out?
Yeah, San Diego gets a chance at some revenge after last season. They no-showed at Wrigley, so they do get them in game 1. And then they blow the last 2 games of the series. Chicago wins on the road. I think there's definitely a chance we could see like a 3-inning Mason Miller type of game to get them in game 1. And then after that, I'm trusting the Chicago offense to eventually heat up here. San Diego, we'll see how it plays out. I don't see them being a second half team though.
Yeah, it's a weird spot for San Diego. If they had Nick Pivetta, like I this might be a 2-game series win for them. Michael King's a stud, but outside of that, Randy Vasquez, Walker Buehler, Matt Waldron, Armand Marquez as your other choices are kind of rough. Obviously, if it gets to October, they'll probably have made a trade or 2 at this point, and they fixed that problem. But that's not how it works in our scenario. Regardless, I think the lineup has been good enough, and the bullpen has been dominant enough that they get past the Cubs with their makeshift bullpen right now. No Palencia. And we've seen the Cubs have some rough couple of games with the bullpen the past 5-6 days now at this point. So I'll go San Diego in 3, but this would be a fun series because it is kind of yin and yang with these 2 squads. The NLDS, Cincinnati versus the Dodgers.
Oh man, that one would be amazing to see again. I want to see it go to 5 games. That's what I picked. But at the end of the day, it's the Dodgers we're talking about here. We're not going to mess around in the second round of the playoffs. I have them winning. They would get to play game 5 at home if they even did lose to them.
If we're talking Hunter Green being healthy here and Andrew Abbott is Andrew Abbott, I think there's a chance because Chase Burns, I think, is a guy that you can trust taking the ball in a playoff game. But Andrew Abbott's sucked and Hunter Green's hurt. So I went Dodgers at 4. I think they win the Chase Burns game, but outside of that, I think it's really tough. And the Dodgers are the Dodgers, so LA in 4. On the other side, San Diego versus Atlanta. I believe you're the same there as well too.
I got the Cubbies going to Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
And they are a very interesting team. It's just unfortunately one of those teams that I think most of the lineup isn't going to be able to carry the power numbers. Like Nico Horner obviously was deserving to be on your awards list today, but he's not going to have a 900 OPS. That's just unreasonable to ask from him. And I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Atlanta. I have Atlanta 3-1 in this series.
Raisel Iglesias is now out. That's an interesting part here because that's like a very recent thing. Robert Suarez would become the closer. Braves bullpen has still been really good to start off the season. I'll say that. Braves rotation, kind of interesting. Outside of Sale, there isn't really like that, lockdown guy, but Bryce Elder's been good. Grant Holmes has been solid. I like J.R. Ritchie. And the Padres have some bad pitching outside of Randy Vasquez and Michael King, or bad starting pitching, that is. And the lineup for the Braves has just been so good to start off the year that I don't see how an Armand Marquez can make it 2 times through this order, or even a Michael King. I think he struggles to get through. So I went Atlanta in 4. San Diego takes a game in there. They have a good bullpen squad. But Atlanta, the 1 seed, moves on to the NLCS. 1 versus 2, Atlanta versus the Dodgers.
Yeah, right now this is kind of the dream matchup I want to see again, just in the regular season, just to see where everyone stands. This would be awesome. This is another one. I picked it to go 7, and I even picked Atlanta to go up 2-1 in this series, which I think is possible too if they do get some guys back in the rotation to keep up with the Dodgers, who have such a deep pitching staff. But at the end of the day, I think no matter where the game's at, the Dodgers would close it out. 1-9, man. Andy Pahis, one of the best hitters in baseball. Will Smith needs a rest. Dalton Rushing, one of the most powerful bench bats of the entire season so far, and maybe a crazy person too. We'll get back to that in October. So unfortunately, the Dodgers move on. I couldn't pick them, man. Even though Atlanta's such a cool story, and their manager played for the A's and everything.
Yeah, the rotation might struggle a ton for the Braves in this series, but I don't think. I guess I don't think Yoshinobu, Shohei, Glasnow are phenomenal pitchers, but the Braves can fucking hit, and I'll say that. And I think that lineup is a little bit better than the Dodgers right now. I think the bullpen, while there's probably more face value when you look at the Dodgers, the Braves have been competing so far with that. There's a chance here, so I'm going to take it. I will take the Braves in 7 games to move on because there's an opening. And I picked the Dodgers to win the World Series. It feels like the last 4 years at this point. I don't know if I've had a single moment where I haven't gone against them in a prediction. So I went with the Braves because why not? It's April. World Series for me. Yankees versus Atlanta. You have Yankees versus Dodgers.
Yeah.
How does that go? And who's the World Series MVP?
I would love to see a little Yankees Braves rematch. I think that would be a way more interesting series. 98, I believe, was the last time that happened. And
Yes.
mine did not end up going that way. Dodgers, Yankees, Dodgers win in 5. It's one of those things. We've watched a lot of Yankees over the past couple of weeks, being that we played there, like you said, and this team gets shut out once a week. And I don't know if they're ready to win a World Series. I don't know if they ever will in the under this regime if they can't do it right now.
Yankees, Braves. I think these teams are very similar, except for the fact that the Yankees have 2 aces, and then also Ryan Weathers, who's been great, and Will Warren, who's been great as well, too. So I have the Yankees in 6 games. I think this would be a phenomenal series. I think it'd be a fun, I don't know, baseball series. This is my first time watching type scenario because I think we do see some runs scored in this one. And we see some cool performances because the pitching bullpen specifically isn't, crazy. I know I've talked good about the Braves bullpen, but the Yankees lineup is pretty unrelenting and they're starting to get really hot right now. So I went Yankees in 6 with my World Series MVP being Ben Rice. Because he's been so good. So why not?
Yeah, I guess I would have to give Shohei Ohtani one for my pick.
That's fair. On to the draft stuff. We only have 4 topics here. Our favorite team draft, our least favorite team draft, our fave pick after round 3, so just our favorite day 3 pick, really, and then our least favorite first round pick. We've done grades total in the past, decided against that this year. Maybe we'll talk more about this stuff later on, but it is very tough to grade a draft, a couple days after the draft, and we haven't seen any of these players in these systems or anything. So we'll start off. Favorite team draft is who?
I really liked the Tampa Bay draft. I really liked Dallas too, but the Baltimore draft was the one I had to choose here. Vega Ioane at 14. Edge rusher Zion Young at 45, who I thought could have won in the first round. And just as important, they draft 4 new pass catchers for Lamar in this one. Jacoby Lane, USC, Elijah Surratt, both huge receivers, down the field playmakers. I think Surratt, even if he was drafted below Jacoby Lane, would be able to start for those guys because it has not been enough. And they also drafted 2 new tight ends, so one of them should be able to fill the Isaiah Likely spot too. So I like what Baltimore did. I would be leaning towards picking them to win the division, even though they looked so terrible last year.
I went in a bit of a different direction. I went with the Giants because I really think that they nailed their first two picks. They got probably the best player available in this draft, non-quarterback, Arvell Reese at 5. I didn't think he'd fall to 5. And then at number 10, they got one of the top probably 5 players in this draft in Francis Mauigoa as well too. Two quarterbacks on each side really to start off your draft. And it felt very turning the page for the Giants, especially, I know they have a new head coach with Harbaugh. And usually that first draft class is something that, keeps you there for 5 years. It gets you out in 2. And this is a draft class that I think keeps you there for a long time. And I know Harbaugh kind of has probably a longer leash because he does have the pedigree and has been there or has been through it for a long time. But those two picks really did it for me. And then they got Colton Hood to start off the second round. You talked about him last week when we did our projections. Fun corner, very physical press corner. He's not super big, but I think a great athlete. And then Malachi Fields in the third round, big physical wide receiver, 6'4", 218. Those really first 4 picks did it for me. They had 3 6-rounders. Bobby Jamison, Travis, J.C. Davis, and Jack Kelly. I don't know anything about those guys, but those first 4 picks were phenomenal. I think they hit well with their draft capital. And if you said sexy Dexy for Francis Mauigoa,
maybe
I think you'd be okay with that. So the Giants, my favorite team draft.
Yeah, good draft.
Least favorite draft. Couple of candidates here.
The big argument online during the draft was about how certain teams have their own version of the board. So that means, no, my favorite team didn't reach. What are you talking about? We were just trying to fit our scheme. But yeah, you do that in the 5th round, not with your first pick of the draft. So I do have Jacksonville as my least favorite draft here. Here's the thing, man. I know that they didn't have a first round pick, and that's just part of the deal, right? Not everyone had 3 first-round picks like the Jets. Doesn't mean they're an A+, but it does mean they got much better players than Jacksonville. I had to pinch myself when they took Nate Boerkircher. He was the 3rd tight end on Texas A&M. He went at pick 56. I was like, no, because I'll have dreams of like the Jets taking Taj Boyd with the number 2 pick or something like, that just like scars from the past. But they actually did it. They have one guy that might be a starter in the next 2 years, Emmanuel Pregnon at guard. And, that's a guard at the end of the day. So I did not like Jacksonville.
Yeah. I went very similar, Jacksonville as well too. When you look at the pre-draft analysis for Boerkircher that they took in the second round, not a great receiver, drops routine passes sometimes, unlikely to create consistent separation, lacks speed, primarily short term receiver rather than vertical threats. Not a crazy blocker either, because I saw this stuff. I'm like, okay, he's got to be like Lee Smith. Like, this guy is just going to block the shit out of people. But he's not like that. He's just not good. And maybe we're wrong. Hopefully for his case, he turns into the best tight end of all time. But, I mean, he only had 19 receptions last year. And they have Brenton Strange, who is a good tight end as well, too. There is no need for it. It didn't make any sense to me. I also saw a lot of people shitting on their Jalen Husky pick as well, too. Overall ranked 228 on Mel Kiper's draft board. And I know Mel Kiper isn't anything crazy, but take him in 3rd round. That's a lot. Like you said, Emmanuel Pregnon was a fun pick. I think that's probably the one starter that they have in there. But like you said, he is a guard as well, too. But regardless, that was a good pick, I think, getting him in the 3rd. The Niners draft, I also do not like. I know that's something that's probably a touchy subject here, so I won't get too far into it.
I agree with you.
I did not like their draft. Kalen Black in the 3rd round, what the fuck? Moving on. Favorite day 3 pick?
Yeah, your guy, Jermon McCoy, is going to be a favorite here, but, there's a reason. It was that he was injured. And I went a different direction here. I tried to find someone who didn't fall because they were injured, but maybe because they didn't fit in the right defense. I just talked about this guy potentially going in the 1st. He went pick 157 to Detroit. Keith Abney II, nickelback from Arizona State. He falls to the 5th round, like I said, not because of injury, not because of 40-yard dash, but because he's 5'9". Hey, come on, guys. It's 2026. Everybody has five corners and three safeties on the field all the time. And like I was telling you, this guy's going to be in a Kenny Moore role right away. And just in case he is too slow or too small or whatever, Brian Branch is right behind him, just covering for him. So I think this is a guy who is going to start. And in the fifth round, that's great.
How about a seventh round pick? How about a guy we've never heard of before going
Let me
into
hear
today?
it.
How about a guy who's never played football before?
Oh, yep.
O.R.
Yep.
Bernard, D tackle out of Nigeria. I think it might be Benyard. I don't know exactly what the correct pronunciation is, but this guy is just a unit of a person. 6'4", 306, ran a 40-yard in 4.6. That's ridiculous. Broad jump just under 11 feet. This guy's a phenomenal athlete. The Eagles have had a history of turning guys that don't play football into really good football players. Jordan Mailata is the big one, name brand here when it comes to that. They only spent a seventh round pick on him. They actually had the next pick as well too. I mean, why not like take a shot on a guy where it's like maybe he sucks, but this is a guy who, if he played football for the last 5 years and grew up playing football, maybe he is a guy who's like a first round pick. So definitely a long term project. This guy's a practice squad guy. I don't think we see him play football for the Philadelphia Eagles in year one, but if we're at year six, maybe he's something, and that would be a fun one.
They drafted Giannis.
Yeah. Other side of that, least favorite first round pick. Who'd you have?
There's obviously some conversation about Ty Simpson here, but I didn't really have it as an F. I think that's not really something that's going to get anyone fired. It just kind of pisses off the coach a little bit. So I went with Caleb Banks to Minnesota at 18. Here's the thing, man. Caleb Banks is massive. I understand why Brian Flores would want him, but he's always hurt. When you're 400 pounds, you're going to break your foot every time you go around the edge. And I just think Minnesota has way bigger issues here that can't be solved by McCarthy and or Kyler Murray. And I think this is a team headed in the wrong direction, and their first round pick might not even play this season.
I went in a weird spot. I went with it because they traded up and they got a guy that I think they could have gotten if they stayed put. It could be a really good player, but Mansour Delane for the Chiefs at 6. Just I thought when they traded up, it's Sonny Styles or Francis Mauigoa or somebody like that, or Caleb Downs or something. I know Mauigoa and Caleb Downs even went past 9, but to trade up for Delane, who I think was definitely going to be there at 9, just didn't really make sense for me. And he could be really good. Maybe I'm biting my words here in a year because he's the best corner in the draft, has the best ball skills, and very physical. But I said in a draft class that I don't really think had a ton of bad first round picks, this is the one that just didn't make a ton of sense to me. Moving on. We have 4 minutes, so how much time do you want to spend on the NBA draft?
Not a lot. I was just going to say
Okay.
we only got 4 minutes. I wanted to shout out the NBA playoffs are going on. Maybe not quite as intense as hockey, but one team is moving on. OKC with the sweep. Also in the West, you have Minnesota who is up, but they're without Ant for at least 2 weeks. Also, dude, oh my God, our guy DiVincenzo out for the next season too. Achilles. That's fucking brutal. You hate to, he's such a good dude and such a good role player. Knicks and Atlanta, crazy. They're 2-2. Same with Cleveland and Toronto, also 2-2. How about the 8-seeded Orlando Magic up 3-1? Wild East, not the West in the NBA right now.
Last week, layups and bold predictions. Good thing we have to go quick because we went 0 for 4 last week. So we'll get through them quick. Kansas City over Baltimore on Wednesday did not happen. New York over Colorado on Friday also did not happen. The Nets got swept by the Rockies at home. This week, Houston over Baltimore, first 5 on Friday. This is Chris Bassett versus Peter Lambert. I don't know exactly what the odds are going to be. Peter Lambert's actually struck out a ton of people so far for the Houston Astros in his first couple of starts. Chris Bassett's been really bad. Astros like to hit. Give me Houston in the first 5.
I'm going with one of those basketball series I just talked about. I got the Orlando Magic finishing off Detroit. Sorry, Sean, but I tried to warn you. This is just not your year, man. Orlando, shockingly, despite playing really well, is still plus 350 to win this game on Wednesday and plus 300 to win game 6. So I think either of those, they should be able to finish off.
Last week bowl prediction, Colorado over San Diego on Thursday. I got that wrong. Should have picked them over the weekend because they won all those. Skyler, Kansas City first drafted player is O-line. Obviously, they go man toward the lane. I just hit on that. This week, Arizona over Milwaukee on Thursday. This is Michael Soroka versus Brandon Woodruff. Soroka's been one of the best pitchers in the MLB so far, super underrated. Versus Brandon Woodruff. Arizona hits, man. They'll do that. And I think Soroka shuts out the Brewers, and they get the win on Thursday, which should be plus odds.
Trying to go with a vibes pick here more than the numbers. I got St. Louis beating the Dodgers at home on Friday. Here's why. This is the first game of a big road trip for the Dodgers. They haven't left in a while, at least left California, I'll say. Sheehan against Michael McGreevy, who's been great, even better than my guy Libertor. So I will go with St. Louis to win one of those games. Hopefully it's Friday.
That's going to do it for episode 290. Next week, back to power rankings, probably some other stuff as well too. But we'll figure that out when we get there. So any parting notes?
We'll see you next week for episode 291. Definitely more baseball.
Yep. All right.
Adios.